Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in and listening. We're trying to get Stan up online so far, though no Stan, so we're going to try and dial him up and see if we can get this. Hey, Larry, how are you doing? Well, we got you on the phone anyway.
Yeah, I'm just waiting on Stan like you, and might have to call him. He may have, he might be riding in his time machine, forgot what time it really was.
Yeah, I can't seem to get it to dial. Okay, let me try again here. Let's see. Not working. Here it goes. Okay. Hi, Stan. We got you. Hello? He dropped.
Oh, might have to call him back again. He may be having trouble getting through. You know, I've done that sometimes.
Yep. This is what always happens, you know, when you got something important to tell people. It seems like, let me see if he calls back in again. I'll take this out, and I'll try it again. Dial. Something's wrong, too, with the whole system.
You know, it's sometimes Blog Talk Radio has spasms or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, while we're waiting, where do we want to start? Did you see that book that fellow, a scientist at MIT, had written about a simulated universe? I wanted to talk to Stan about that.
Oh, that's interesting. No, I hadn't seen it. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that we're in a simulation, and it's very much like the movie The Matrix, which is, of course, exactly what I was doing with frequency. I think we proved conclusively that it really is, there is a matrix, and that we're in it. So let me keep trying here. I wonder what's going on. Have to click on dial. Wow. I don't know. Maybe he's not going to be able to get on.
I'm beginning to wonder if he's having trouble calling in, you know.
Yeah. Well, we got him one time there. Well, I don't know what to do because it's not working here on this end either.
You're not able to call him?
Nope. It's got the number, but it's not doing anything.
I was wondering if Patty was there, if she could call him on your cell phone, maybe, and see if he could get on.
What's an idea? Wait just a minute. Can you try calling him on your cell phone and see if he'll call back in? Okay, she's going to try and get him that way.
Okay.
All right, well, such is life. What have you got?
Yeah,
how should we start off?
I'm always looking for alternative ways to do things because, boy, we run into so much trouble all the time.
Well, censorship is fast approaching, and why don't we talk about Julian Assange, because that's a dark day for journalists. And I noticed that all the deep state, New World Order people are just clapping, and he's a devil, and he should be killed, and boy, we're glad we got our hands on him. And the people that are not involved in the New World Order are saying it's a dark day for freedom of the press. What's your take on what happened?
Well, I find it interesting that Ecuador dumped him out like they did. That was a political move, of course, and you know, he'll be lucky if he survives extradition, because I've heard that they may put him in a prison in UK for a year, and you know, there's a lot of guys in there that'll do things to you.
Yeah. Well, you know, he exposed deep state. That's the whole problem with it. That's why they hate him.
Yep.
He exposed the corruption
exactly right.
and everything that was going on. And I know Trump at one time had said he thought he should be punished severely. But when he was on the road, he kept referring to WikiLeaks and how much he liked WikiLeaks leaks. So I don't know what's going on there. But, of course, if you're surrounded by deep state, you're going to be quiet about what you believe in and what you don't, I guess.
Yeah, the Attorney General, Barr, he's finding out that you can't even say the word spy. Deep state, mainstream media, and the left, and a lot of rhino Republicans go nuts. They don't want him talking about maybe somebody is spying on Trump.
Well, they were spying. What he actually said was, look, I want to know whether the spying was done legitimately or illegitimately, is what he actually said. And, of course, like you were just saying, Deep State's going nuts because he used that. I found him. Wait just a minute. I think I just saw Stan. Yep.
Okay.
By or what? He flew
Stan,
by.
how are you doing?
Right. Fine. Technology.
Well, at least we got you. That's a plus. Thanks for coming on. I know you're really, really busy.
Well, that's fine. That's fine, guys. So you've been going on without me, eh?
For about 2 minutes.
Barely.
But that was about it. Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just said just barely. We was talking riddles mostly, waiting on Stan to line it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, Larry, I got your package of black thingies. They look like miniature little sticks, or actually like mouse droppings or something that are skinny. And when you open up that bottle, that black powder, boy, does it stink.
Oh.
It's not magnetic.
What do you think
though.
it is?
I don't know. I'm going to have another way to figure out to test it, because it's certainly not magnetic. I was thinking it would be from the coal-fired power plant west of you there in Oklahoma, because they combine carbon and well, no, it's on the border there, I think. Yeah, they combine the coal dust or the carbon with spherules, or like spherical little balls of magnetite, which is formed in the process of burning the coal. And magnetite is magnetic, so I thought, right. I put the magnets, really strong ones, up next to it, didn't even move them. And the first thing that we noticed, as I said, is that they smell to high heaven. I will have to magnify it and see if I can see any signs of like biological properties versus, mineral. But they're also uniformly formed, length and diameter, that it does kind of suggest it's not biological, that it's, mineral of some sort. I don't know. It'll take a little bit more to figure out, guys. Did you say that it kind of clings to your clothing when you're walking and comes in the house with you?
Would you
Larry?
Pick it up on your shoes and your pants if you get close to it, and it tries to seek warmth, except whenever the sun's out, it moves. The piles all move mysteriously and get into the shady areas. They work their way that way slowly, but it's bizarre. I've never seen anything like it.
So, but didn't you say they clustered together too? They try to form a lump, so they attracted to each other. Yeah, somewhere or other.
That's just weird. If it's not magnetic, it might be electrostatic. So now sunlight will neutralize electrons on a plate, a charged plate. So, but why would it move with the sun? That just really is amazing. You've got a mystery there. We'll have to dig into this.
I appreciate it. I'll tell you what. What's interesting too is the fact that it tries to. The piles try to get to a door or someplace where they can come into the house. Almost, it's bizarre, And when I'd spray some sprays down in front of the door, or I spread Vaseline, that stopped it like a barrier. They wouldn't approach that, but they would all clump together and then move as a mass. It's so strange. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, I have to say it's unique to what I've ever seen. But can you spray like bug killer or anything like that? Does it react?
It moves away from any. I used. They've got something called border that you spray to keep fleas and ticks out of the houses. And when I spray that, they'll stay away from it. They won't cross that barrier. I've got something. It's called barrier, is what it is.
I think I've heard of that,
whatever it is,
but no.
it doesn't like it. It doesn't like it. So I was wondering if it's possibly a hybrid of some kind that can detect things like radiation in the sunlight or something else, and it moves away from it.
If there's no wind and you're standing there looking at it and you spray down on it and you say it moves away, can you get close enough to see how it moves, how fast it moves?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't move away. If I spray down on top of them, or whatever it is, they don't move, and then later they'll move away on their own. But if you spray a barrier across an area, they won't cross it. Whatever this is, it's like a collective of some kind. I don't know.
Borg on a miniature scale, huh?
Yeah.
Now,
could this be nanotechnology?
Well, I'm just wondering now. Nanotechnology is what Stewart was saying, but what have you ever actually watched it move?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't move that fast, but in just a little while you'll notice it's changed and it's moved. But it moves. Stan as a mass, not individually, but it's like it all put. In other words, when the rain or something it comes down, or sometimes it's been in snow, and the snow would have to melt for it to begin to move. And but it comes down scattered, but then it all is drawn to itself into piles. It reminds me of the old movie, if you remember it, The Blob.
Yeah, that's going back a while.
Yeah,
I can remember watching that Saturday in the movie theater there in the neighborhood, and either eating one of those big 10-cent dill pickles or a bunch of popcorn and hiding behind the seat. Yeah.
Look, Stan, I did think something when I was talking to you. I'd mentioned it to Stewart. If you've watched the movie Interstellar, if you'll remember, there was a magnetic anomaly that caused the dust. Remember, to
yes,
make piles. And I was wondering, we've got some kind of magnetic anomalies up in this region all the time going on, and I was wondering if somehow it's connected maybe.
All good questions. The fact that my magnets here don't affect it kind of is a puzzle. What I'm thinking is it might be electrostatic because of the involvement with the sunlight, and it cancels charge. And for them to clump together, this is weird because if they were all the same kind of charge, they'd run away from each other. So it might be that the ends, one is charged. And one, there's another mineral that does that. I think tourmaline has polarity like that, electric charge. But tourmaline crystals are way different than this. Have you been able to find how far away from your place these things are collecting? Is it in the next county or anything like that?
No, I haven't heard anything that far away, but I walked down the hill, and a lot of times I've found piles of them on the side of the road, down the hill from where I live, about a quarter mile or longer. But, it's odd that, I'm right on top of the mountain, which is really strange for all to just seem to fall here. But I don't hear anybody else talking about it at all. It's like it only exists right here. I don't know.
No neighbors have seen them or anything?
No.
Now that is just plain weird.
Yeah, it is.
Well, look, as I say, I'll have to do some tests. I'll see how it reacts to various types of light. And it really needs a microscope of some sort to get down close to those little single individuals and see if there's any, like, cilia, little tiny hairs or something. How does it move? You see what I'm saying? Is it the attraction of nearby pieces of it, and they just slide? Do they line up when they slide, like, all in the same lengthwise orientation? These are questions that you could probably answer better than me right now because you've got them in the locations where you found them. Are they in the weeds or grass or anything like that?
Well, they fall there, but they seem to move away they find themselves somewhere or other. And what's odd, they make these piles, and some of these piles have been probably almost an inch deep, thick with them. I mean, like I told Stewart, I could almost pick them up with a shovel, but I use a spoon, But, it's a lot. And what's interesting is when it moves as a mass. I mean, it doesn't. They're not individually moving, and the movement is slow, really, really slow. In other words, I can go away and come back a little bit, and I can tell it's moved. But it's
would you be able to clock it? Would you be able to put some kind of a marker where it is at some point in time, and then come back? I don't know, 2 hours later or something, and see how far it's moved in what direction in that time? Give us some specific values.
I have watched it really, really close at my back door, which is a wooden porch, and they move across this porch into piles up against that door where I'd put Vaseline as a barrier to stop it. And when I go, I would say 2.5, 3 hours, they move probably 2 feet.
Do they move 2 feet away from the door, toward the door, or left and right of the door?
No, they move along the border of the door. They move, let's see if I can get the direction right, south, east. They move southeast along the border of the wall in clump, moving away from the door, wherever there's a barrier.
Okay, now that's moving.
It's not fast.
Okay, that's moving toward a barrier there on your wooden porch. Out away from the house when they cluster and move, are they moving in the same southeast direction or what?
They move along the wall itself and where the porch comes up against the wall, and they just go, most of the times they move to the southeast, in a direction.
All right. But that's up on your porch because they hit a barrier. What about out in the yard where they're out there in the stones or whatever? Do they move out there in a southeasterly direction as well?
In a little bit, but they're more scattered out front because the drive is concrete, and they clump in clumps, in different clumps, and some move a little bit different. But usually sunlight, they begin to vanish. I don't know what happens to them, but in sunlight, if they can't get away from it, it's like an evaporator or something. It's really weird.
That is weird. Well, I won't take up any more time on the show about that, but I will have to investigate. That's really an interesting find. Weird.
Yeah, that's strange.
Okay,
so
guys.
They're attracted. Well, are they moving from the ground, or does this come down on your porch itself? Or are they moving up onto the porch?
No, they come down on the porch and on the concrete out front, everywhere around the house. And then they begin to move into what I call collectives. In other words, they all start grouping up in locations that apparently it chooses.
They're communists.
It's almost
you can see that.
like a collective,
Yeah, a communist.
Yeah. Oh, my God, I didn't realize that.
Now, seriously, though, Larry, I think what Stewart was saying, too, is do they climb up the step or do they fall out of the sky? I mean, how do they get up and onto the porch?
I think they're falling on the porch.
Out of the air.
As far as I know, I can't see them moving up the steps or anything like that. It's like they fall around the roof, down onto the porch in front, in that area. Weird.
Oh, that is just weird. Never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, that's very strange. Have you tried prayer?
I've never heard anything either, but there goes the neighborhood.
True.
No, I really haven't.
Hello?
Well, you there? Did we lose him?
Yeah, I think maybe we did.
He was dropping in
I'm
and
here.
out before. Okay, good.
Okay, you're back. Okay, good.
Yeah.
We're having quite a time tonight.
No
yeah,
one
go ahead,
asked
Larry.
you to. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, no, I really hadn't prayed it particularly because I wasn't sure what it was, and it's something I've just simply never seen before. But they also fall down from the house, a ways down the side of the road, and I can see them in clumps sometimes, and tire impressions, and on the side of the road in the ditches and stuff. And they all become a collective, even down there, of their own self. And then later they're gone after 24, 36 hours. It's almost like they evaporate or go into something else, hiding or something, I suppose.
Well, you're on a mountain. I don't know the exact slope of it, but what you're telling me is basically they're on the mountain, on the top, and on the side, and down into the gutters, but not away from your property.
Well, I don't see them away from the property because, you got the grass and the weeds and all this kind of stuff, and there's a lot of trees around me, pines and oak, so you really don't see them in that. You can't see, it's pretty hard to see it, but up by the house it's more clear and I can see.
Well,
yeah. Well, I don't know, guys. It's something we'll have to look at. It's really if you find out locations of any other clusters of them away from your property, that'd be interesting to see where they are. And I know you can't wait around to see if the clumps move in some direction out there, but you can do your own test with a flashlight, with a match that you light a match or something that's hot and bring close to them and see if they run away from it. They might move faster if it was hotter. You see, I don't know.
What in the world could they be?
I just have no idea, guys. I mean, really, this is something that needs to be under a microscope, probably more powerful than I've got here. But, we need to see what the surface of it's like. One of those single little kind of, what would you call it, like a cylinder type thing, but with smooth ends. It's like
and the best color I can call them is black. Is a black color.
And if you picked them up or scooped them up and then had a sniff of them to see what they smell like.
I didn't really smell anything at the time, but of course I sent them to you sealed. So whatever it is, maybe that wasn't the smart thing to do. I don't know.
Maybe they died.
Huh?
Yep, they're
that's
living.
Weird. Yeah, if they are, but if they died in the trip, that's good. I don't want them run all over the house, but that's just weird. We'll
Somebody did write, I think, an email. I don't know whether you got it, Larry, or whether it was here, and I'd have to dig it out. But it was something about, could this possibly be something that causes Morgellons disease that they claim doesn't exist, but lots of people have it?
Oh wow. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that email, and they also called it black goo. So apparently It's not as unknown as people think. I mean, even though I'm the only one that I know that's got it, apparently it has been seen other places.
I wonder if we could ask your listeners if they've seen it to let us know what location they are and see if we can kind of do a rough plot of where this stuff is falling or growing or whatever. Morgellons disease, that would be weird because, it grows out in those spindly little wire things out of the skin. I hope that you've gotten rid of all of them that got in the house or on your boots, Larry.
Well, Darnette, she had to really use, I think she used vinegar and something else. It was very, very difficult to get it up off the floor just inside the doors, and we've really worked hard at it to keep it out. But it's the most mysterious stuff I've ever seen, But this is about the third year that I've actually encountered this stuff outside. Now, this probably was the worst year, and it was thicker. But we've had a lot of rain this year, and a lot of it's coming down in the rainfall.
Connected maybe to some sort of chemtrail type stuff?
Well, we've had really, really extensive chemtrails. the last couple of months here, and I mean, they just paint the sky, and some of them are dark colored, but I don't know the difference. I don't know which ones are which, you know.
Dark one, hey? Well, now that's even more interesting. The fact that it's so regular in shape and size, that just doesn't even seem natural. It's like a man-made thing. Wow. It might be interesting, Darnett used vinegar. It might be interesting to put some of these on a slide or, flat piece of, like a little plate. And then right in the middle of them, put one drop of vinegar, which is, obviously an acid. And another plate, put a layer of them, thin layer, and then drop, let's see, where do you get sodium hydroxide? Lye. Drop some lye right in the middle of it, one drop, to see if they migrate away from that, acids and bases, to see if there's any change in their position or activity. And then just shine a light, like a flashlight, on one side of the dish, and leave it sit there, for an hour or two, to see if they migrate away from it or toward it.
Well, I know one thing. It doesn't seem to like sunlight. Now, whether it's the light, real bright light, or radiation of the sun, I don't know which. But my the front area of the house where the drive is and all that's concrete, where a lot of it builds up, it gets away from that sunlight. It doesn't like it. And it appears that what doesn't get away just literally vanishes, like it just turns into dust or air. I don't know.
Well, I've heard a number of reports in the UFO scene about the angel hair type stuff falling after, UFOs come by and whatever, or some chemtrails. And they, those that have been there close enough to pick it up, put it into a jar, and of course it just kind of vanishes. It's like a gas after a while and gone. So maybe it's something in the sunlight that does, as you say, vaporize it, and away it goes, which would mean that if they are using some result of the chemtrails over your area, which are a lot apparently, then they depend on this to come down in the sunlight to, vaporize it and turn it back into the atmosphere somehow. I don't know. It's something we'll have to look at later. I know we've got a few other things to talk about, so I'll need more time to study this, and you guys do too, just to make some tests on it and see what the heck it is. So where would you like to go, guys?
I got a question for you. Large seismic event similar to that preceded the 2011 Japanese quake and tsunami underway off New Zealand's North Island. Ongoing earthquake swarm. And then there was something about the water there and that island, that lake that you had that vision about. What do you think that's about?
Well, let me just pull up New Zealand. I want to have a look at that before I answer that. Just a second here. I'm on New Zealand now. Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, there's a Pacific, continental plate, and then there's the Australian plate. And I think the Australian plate is, just trying to remember, I think it's diving under the Pacific plate. But where they're talking about is an extremity on the north side of the North Island. What I was talking about was Lake Taupo, which, if you're looking at a map, is almost dead center in North Island. And that's the major lake there. There's another one up near Rotorua too, and then offshore in an island at White Island. And traditionally, what they do is they watch White Island, WHIT, White Island. They watch that volcano for activity because it's what they call the zipper volcano in North Island, New Zealand. When it is active and very active, in a line coming from there to Rotorua down into Lake Taupo in the center, you expect volcanoes, earthquakes in that line, in the zipper line, to a field of volcanoes that are south and around Lake Taupo. Now, they're talking about a slow earthquake, one that's not sudden, but it's a movement of earth that's slow. And it's like, instead of continental drift, it's like continental slip that's slow. It's a big movement of earth, but doing it slowly instead of fast enough to knock the dishes off the table and stuff like that. While we're talking here, let me just grab up this on the picture of that on the earthquakes map here.
While you're looking at that, this is Mount Rahapal, New Zealand, increases in lake temperature. GeoNet is recording another phase of high lake temperatures at Mount Rahapal, along with moderate levels of volcanic tremor. Didn't you have a vision about that?
Well, I'm trying to understand that name that the Mount what, or what do you call that first thing? What was the name of it?
Well, I'm not pronouncing it. It's Ruapehu in New Zealand.
Ruapehu.
That's the one you.
Yeah,
Ruapehu.
Well, no, that's a volcano south of. It was actually connected by a valley to Lake Taupo, kind of northeast of it, and Ruapehu. I've actually flown over it when it was full of sulfuric acid at the top and steaming.
Ooh.
It was a quick trip. I mean, we were down close enough to take photos of details and things, but that's connected. That's kind of an indicator for Lake Taupo. Now, what did they say? It was getting warm, or the Lake Taupo north of it?
No, the volcano was. It says the water temperatures of the high lake that's on top of it, I guess. Recording another phase of high lake temperatures at Crater Lake. I guess that.
Could be. I think that's the name of it, and that's the one I flew over. It's almost a good circle. It's slightly elongated, but during the winter it gets snow in there, and during the summer periods it gets active, and it's kind of a greenish, frothy-looking sulfuric acid lake. Now, there have been crazies there that have been reported in the news even, that while it was erupting, Ruapehu was erupting, and that lake was spewing stuff and magma down the side of it, on what would be the east side. On the west side, there was one idiot, maybe two, that were skiing on the snow on that side while it was doing. They knew it was erupting and putting magma on the other side, but it was the ultimate high for them, so to speak, to get up to that height and then, ski down it. They're just crazy sometimes. But yeah, that's very close where I had the dream vision about. It's connected to the same kind of fault, if you wish. Now, it's interesting when you say they've noticed the temperature change in that lake on Ruapehu. It's a small lake compared to Lake Taupo. But in fact, let me just tell you how close they are here. The Lake Taupo and then Ruapehu. It looks like it's about 35 miles northeast of it, along that valley, is where Lake Taupo is. So that's the one I had the dream vision about. And that is an extinct, dormant, shall we say, volcano with the potential to erupt like Yellowstone. The last time it did was around 87, maybe 125 AD, a long time ago. And because of my visit down there, what you're talking about, Stewart, I was on Art Bell, and I mentioned it while I was down there on his show. And it got a lot of attention, and I was asked not to come back by the Department of Tourism of New Zealand. And things blew over. Well, things calmed down. But because of the attention I drew to this and the fact that the GNS, Geological Nuclear Sciences there, which is like our USGS, they didn't have enough budget to get the instruments to monitor temperature or to go to the bottom of Lake Taupo with a yellow submarine they could hire or lease from the Germans. They didn't have enough budget because the government was wanting to spend whatever it was, $100 million to move Government House up in Auckland there. They wanted to move it several feet to the left or right because it was a better location for them. And that's what they were budgeting for. And so I made reference to that in the show. I said, it's kind of crazy. They've got something here, an organization that could save a lot of people from this great disaster that is coming. And they want to move, Government House a few feet this way or that way. I said, if they just wait, whatever's going to happen is probably going to move it anyway. And strangely enough, the government decided to allocate a good budget to the GNS so they could rent from the Germans, the Yellow Submarine, to go down there and start mapping these hot geysers that are underneath the water level there, and telling the temperature of it and the temperature of feeder streams and stuff to it, all the stuff they needed to give early warning, even early warning equipment and sirens and things like that. So my visit was well timed for the political use of the money and things, and so now then people have been warned, and they're prepared to do what they've got to do to run north or whatever when it happens. But with that, what started all this was that slow-moving earthquake with a lot of faster little earthquakes you're talking about. At the outside, they're saying 30 years before that happens, but that's the outside time. It could be happening tomorrow. One of the things that the Maori natives of the North Island, New Zealand, they were aware of this already. And when I told about my dream vision, and another guy told about his, the leader of the Maori, what they call them, Kahuna, I think she is, she sent a message to me through a lady that was living there that had her email, and she said, "We know that it's coming, and the early warning before it happens will be a scandal that occurs in China," I think she said, "where a great dam fails, and it will be overusing substandard logs to build that portion of the dam, like a tributary, and it's going to fail and kill a lot of people in China. When that event happens, Lake Taupo is not far behind it in an eruption that will be catastrophic." The last recorded eruption, as I say, around 87 to 125-ish AD, the Chinese astronomers recorded, 3 days of darkness in the northern hemisphere after it happened. I mean, this is a huge thing. And it's Chinese astronomers, and she's using a Chinese dam failure to also predict when this is about to happen. So that's all I can tell you. Keep your eyes and ears open and see what happens.
Well, here's another headline. The volcanic unrest continues. And with the current solar minimum, it's not going to stop in a while. Be prepared. Ongoing eruptions in Kamchatka, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Chile, and unrest in New Zealand.
Yeah.
19 erupting volcanoes. What's your take? Or I personally think we're heading into a disaster zone. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There are a number of issues happening. The magnetic field, as you know, is weakening, and it's starting to weaken very fast now at the end of its current phase. It's a sinusoidal wave, but it's starting to speed up. And we're talking in tens of years, if not less, for it to make a position where it can flip-flop upside down, the magnetic field. Now, this is not the whole planet. This is the magnetic core. And during the flip-flop, when it does occur, there are at least 2, maybe 3 pairs of north-south fields inside the magma inside our core. And these will wander around inside the planet, giving false north and south poles all over the place. The latest satellite information I got a hold of showing the magnetic north density and the position of it, and the same for the south pole, showed that the north pole is actually splitting into 2 at the moment. It's kind of lopsided when you look at the map. It's the same place. It's not really splitting. It's just spreading in a particular direction. Now, I did go to the North Pole on Google Earth, and I found something that was extraordinary. I should have been looking at this a long time ago, but just didn't realize it was happening. At the North Pole, it wanders, and so there's a division of NASA that plots that wandering. From year to year, where's the North Pole, magnetic north? Well, for hundreds of years of data they could collect, it kind of wandered around and snake-tailed onto itself and back and forth and stuff like that. But in 1975, it started to form a straight line, moving, maybe a mile along this straight line each year. But then 25 years ago, in 1995, it started to take off in the same direction, this straight line going out into the Arctic Sea. And it was moving not 1 mile per year, but 30.7 miles per year along the straight line. So I said to myself, where is it going? What's happening here? And I plotted that path, extended where it's been moving, where it will move if it keeps going that direction. And I found a hole, a longitudinal hole in the sea floor. And Google Earth had made a comment about it, which they posted it, and Google Earth actually put the comment there. When you click on the little information button, it pops up to tell you about a place 200 miles to the west of that hole. And the 200 miles is neither here nor there, because it's what it was thought to be in 1829, the northern polar entrance to the hollow Earth. Now, you can look this up, northern polar entrance to the hollow Earth. Now, I think we do have a periodic opening of not only that hole there, but in the South Pole and in other planets and, moons. They periodically have this small opening occur at both poles, as though it's like breathing in, out, in, out. It's part of the gravitational field that I've been studying. But you can see that. If you go to Google Earth and get in there to the Arctic Sea, you'll see that this hole is there. Now, the hole is at the end of a drag mark, like a trench, a shallow trench, all the way from a place near Iceland. And I think this is because of an asteroid impact, that caused a flood on the other side of the planet, that it shifted to the magnetic field, and somehow or another it made this trench mark as it moved along this new North Pole. That's where our current North Pole is heading at the moment, in a beeline for it. Now, is this causing some of the earthquakes and volcanic activity as this magnetic field moves with such speed? You can look up the story of it by looking up Olaf, O-L-A-F, Jansen, J-A-N-S-E-N. Now, long dead, of course, but they took a boat through the ice in July of 1829 and accidentally discovered the North Polar opening into hollow Earth, so they say. Questionable, but the fact that it's within 200 miles of this hole where our North Pole is now heading tells me that their reading could have been off. The map they made was not that accurate. And so it's in the general location and where this trail leads. Now, the weakening Earth magnetic fields, I've said many times, is removing our shield from the sunlight and various radiation that's harmful to living things on the Earth. When the poles reverse, they're going to weaken and, over a period of months, flip-flop. It may be even faster, but I was just looking at what the NASA estimation was and trying to correlate back to what we really think is happening. So this causes stress in the crust of the planet because of the lumps, the moving underneath of all this plasma stuff. Now, that could be causing the volcanoes to go, more frequently. But what I'm seeing is patches of places like on our west coast where earthquakes from like 0.1 up to whatever, the numbers of them are dropping right now, and it's very sparse. Now, that's a worry in any place that happens because it means the seismic pressure is building up and it hasn't released in an earthquake yet. And when you take that into consideration, what USGS is kind of softly warning is at the longest in the next 30 years, that is going to cause a 6.5 or greater earthquake along the San Andreas that will do much more damage than it did last time, or when it did up in San Francisco. This could be the big one. It could unzip that whole west coast all the way up to the Juan de Fuca plate off of the Oregon coast and Washington coast as well. So that might explain why you're seeing this volcanic activity. It might also be that the Earth is starting a new expansion stage. At the time before the Great Flood, the Earth was 75% smaller in diameter. Then suddenly, after that asteroid hit, it ballooned up to where we are now and stretched the heck out of continents. Now, are we fixing to see that again as part of this magnetic field shift that we're seeing, the turbulence in the core? I'm trying to figure out how to answer your question because, we just don't have enough information in the public anyway to tell us the answer to that.
Well, the Bible does say that hell expands itself, which would indicate Earth expansion. I suppose you could look at it that way rather than a number of people going in there. But so it could be a double reference that the Earth. And what about all the rifts we're having? I mean, these splits and these huge rifts and sinkholes are all indicative of expanding, right?
Yes, they are, and that's kind of why I think it's happening that way. Interesting point. I probably when I did the Garden of Eden lecture and also the Atlantis lecture, I picked 5 spots that were large asteroids that hit the Earth when the surface was a lot more fluid or plastic, And there's one off the south coast, or the point of Argentina in South America, between it and a piece of land at Antarctica there. And they were split apart by this asteroid when this happened, which was a long time ago. And it shoved from the left to the right, if you look at the screen at USGS, and it left ahead of it a ridge, like you look at something coming at a low angle and hitting the Earth's surface and going shoved like that, and it shoves the dirt of the seafloor up ahead of it to form this half of a circle ridge. And that's where large earthquakes occur down there, is on the ridge that was left by that impact. And then you say, well, are the other impact zones, are they likely to have something like this? Yeah. We're expecting a Richter 8 or better over in the Banda Sea, north of Australia. It's got one of those impact craters there. In fact, Terrell Croft does keep a record of that and is studying magma movements under the crust, and that's where he's predicting the next Richter 8 will be because of the activity underneath the crust. And then there's another one just not far from here, off the coast of New Guinea. You can see that it's shoved up a kind of an egg-shaped ridge ahead of it. Look on those ridges, and you'll see historically that's where these big earthquakes occur, where it has put an imbalance on the crust of the Earth at the point where the meteor stopped, or asteroid, whatever. Over in the Sea of Japan and various areas down south of the Philippines, there's also a couple of more that I've found there. They take a little more hand-waving and gesturing to show you where it is, but there are 5 of these I've found.
Wow.
So.
Well, we're also getting these loud booming and scraping sounds that are being heard again. What do you think that is? I mean, I myself have heard it. It sounded like a plow on a dry pavement. And so I thought, well, maybe there's a plow truck coming up the road. There was nothing. There was no vehicle at all, but that's what it sounded like.
Well, at least it wasn't like fingernails on glass. That would have been worse.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering, I mean, it was really, really loud. Really loud.
And that was near your location. Did anyone else hear it as well?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they heard it or not. I never went down to the neighbors to ask, but I heard it loud and clear. Heard it twice, actually, and then I never heard it again. But they were recording these scraping sounds all over Wisconsin, and Canada had them, and now we're getting those reports all around. Is this part of this Earth expansion, do you think? And it's coming up from down below, but it sounds like it's coming from the sky?
Most certainly it could be, and probably it is, but you got to wonder if it's someone boring with large boring machines underneath there to make more tunnels.
That could be. That could be.
Well, listen,
yeah.
You say that, but we had a lady down in Arizona, probably 15 years ago, that emailed us and said, look, there's something going on here because my bed starts to vibrate at night, and, it's moved over to the corner. We get this strong vibration underneath us. And it went on for a while, and then it stopped. And I'm just wondering, in the area where she was, Arizona,
tunneling.
Let me think. Yeah, tunneling. So
yep.
It could be that, but again, without more information, we can't be sure.
Yeah.
I tend
Larry,
to think that we're going to see this. Say again?
I was going to ask Larry if he's got a question for you. We are kind of running out of time here in a little while. Larry.
Well, I was just really interested in what Stan's saying, and at the same time, Stan, what is the sun doing right now? They say it's a solar minimum, but there are some CMEs, and we're having an incredible amount of charged particles off the sun hitting our magnetic field all the time.
Yeah, Larry, there is something weird going on. It's certainly not global warming, if you get my drift, but we are in a stage where for the next 2 years it should be very low sunspot activity, if any at all. But that's not stopping these flares and coronal mass ejections, which just suddenly appear and shoot off the sun. Now, with our magnetic field weakening, it means more of that's going to get through and make changes to, animal behavior to human behavior. When you play with the electromagnetic field and electrostatic field from the particles from the sun hitting us, does make changes in the environment and to the living creatures. It's a mystery that I think is telling us that we're approaching the time, like the book of Revelation talks about, when the sun will suddenly be covered by a cloud. That's in the Old Testament. The New Testament, in the Revelation of John, the sun is darkened.
Black, yeah.
And that's from the cloud that talked about in the Old. In fact, a number of the Old Testament prophets, particularly Daniel, did prophesy things that we see that John records in the book of the Revelation. They're interwoven, and so they reinforce each other. And it also says that after that cloud, which of course makes the moon look like the color of blood because of the dust between the light of the sun and dust, is it's changed to a reddish hue, and that's what makes the sun look like it's the color of blood. But in that same series there is a burst of light from the sun where the light of the moon is like 7 times what it would normally be, which means that the light of the sun side of the planet is 7 times brighter. Now, no matter what bandwidth that's in, ultraviolet or infrared or whatever, when you increase the light output of the sun that much, it's going to harm the environment on the side of the Earth that's facing that brilliant burst of light. Now, it says at the same time that it will burn 1/3 of the planet's area and kill green grass and kill fish and, utterly destroy it by fire. Why 1/3? Because when the sphere of our Earth is facing the sun and it emits this brilliant burst of light, the light photons, the waves, the particles coming from the sun will hit the Earth in the middle of the side that's facing with full intensity, and the intensity drops off until the light kind of bounces off the sides of the Earth, facing the sun. This will happen in a few minutes, and so only 1/3 instead of 1/2 of the planet gets cooked, but the rest of the planet, after it's over, will be overheated, and it will clobber our environment for some time. But it's going to be a short event if it's only going to destroy or burn 1/3 of the planet's surface. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, it doesn't sound too pleasant, does it?
Well, it never did, but we're now on the doorstep of it. And we're also going to see a star, a bright object, fall into the oceans and pollute the oceans as well. It's probably a metallic asteroid, which most of them are nowadays, iron, nickel type thing, and it's going to kill a lot of fish with the combination of the heat and the minerals in the meteorite that falls into the sea by what John said in the Revelation. These things are coming upon us rather quickly, and this current solar cycle is an example of that. We are about to see a major change, I believe, in the nuclear chemistry, the equation of how the sun works. All stars do this, but I think ours is going to surprise a lot of people that it's happening so early, in its length of its life. It won't be so bad that we can't live here on the planet, because remember, the millennial reign has to happen 1,000 years after the tribulation period, so the Earth will not be destroyed in that time. It will after that, but while we're here with the Lord, it will be a good environment. So there is hope on the other side of that.
There is a lady who said she's not a prophetess. She doesn't claim she's a prophetess, but she said the Lord told her that there was a coming 3 days of darkness. It would be preceded by auroras all over the earth. That would be the warning that you've got a couple days to prepare yourselves. And then it would be a series of earthquakes, and then immediately thereafter, the darkness comes. What would you make of that? That sounds almost like a CME event. And auroras all
like
over.
That's from charged particles from the sun that make the aurorae. And to see a lot of them and reaching down further than they do normally toward the equatorial region of the planet tells people, okay, look out there, that 3 days of darkness is coming. Why? Because the sun starts to cool down for a little bit and throw off clouds of dust and particles that it creates around it. So you have a cloud around the sun for 3 days and 3 nights. Now that is so thick that it blocks the light of the sun almost entirely. So that's the darkness they're talking about. And that makes the blood red moon. But then comes the event that blows that cloud away in the next stage of the sun's evolution, and it's going to be that 7 times brighter burst of light. And so when she says to tell people to prepare, if you're on the side that gets hit by that blast, you're going to want to be, as the Bible says, underneath the rocks and caves and somewhere, where you're deep enough that you don't get fried from the thing that hits the surface. It'll be a quick event, but things will be heated up for several days after that.
Yeah, and when you look at the prophecies against the United States or Babylon, maybe that'll be us that gets hit. Who knows?
Well, you laugh, but I agree with you, Stewart. I hate to say it, but Babylon is destroyed in 1 hour by fire. We thought, okay, maybe it's the invasion of the Russians and the Chinese, and we have nuclear destruction of our cities or something like that. But in 1 hour, that tells you it's an event that's quick and big. So
you've probably been monitoring the North Korean situation in Kim, and he just said, well, we're going to have to do something about these people that are putting sanctions on us. What do you make of that? We got a couple minutes left.
Okay, well, Rocket Boy is, a lot of showmanship, and I don't see him, wiping out the United States. He could try it with an EMP, with one of his satellites that are orbiting over us twice a day. And I don't even know if he's got an EMP on board, like a nuke. Mm-hmm. I'm really, the Air Force, have told me that they are more concerned with the sun than they are with, Rocket Man's EMP pulse thing. We can take out most of the stuff he can dish out with our current status. The Chinese, however, and the Russians have been developing new technology that I don't know that we're 100% sure we could stop them. But we know that the United States has to be neutralized for Russia to go on down in and try to destroy Israel and control the Middle East.
Yes.
Whether by an act of God or whether it be by an act of nukes or whatever, America has to be taken out of the equation so Israel is defenseless. Well, at least by...
What about the Venezuelan situation? What do you think?
Well,
is that going to start a war?
It's like the Cuban Missile thing. They're stacking missiles down there. They want to have a foothold there, which is on the ground and not with a sea between, like Cuba and the United States. It's a way to infiltrate our southern border, and I'm sure they've already got people coming across using the border. And now Mexico's so mad at us that they're going to join when people get organized to attack our southern border and us, obviously. So the Venezuelan situation is quite important to this whole thing. We're being surrounded, and it's not one location that we can threaten to bomb like Kennedy did with Khrushchev. We've got new problems down there. We can't find them all, and I'm sure a lot of them are already here as sleepers in the United States to help with the problem, with the overthrow. And we have the pressure of a civil war between factions here in the United States. It's just a mess.
Yeah, divide and conquer.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We are so divided. You're right.
Well, I wish I had put up for more time, but we're going to be done here in about 50 seconds or so. Larry, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell Stan to thank Holly for posting the information on this Candida auris that's going around the world, the globe, and some of it's even here in Oklahoma. Appreciate her doing that.
All right, I'll tell her. It's
that's
very important issue. Yeah. Well, I'm sure she's going to keep track of it.
Any final comment you'd like to give everybody other than a heads up?
Well, don't go to sleep, folks. Read the news. Go to our website. Holly has the news updated every day, except one day of the week we take off. But she's finding things all over the planet from her various news sources that don't always get reported in the American or European newspapers. So it's a good place to get the news that we want to see as Christians.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Stan. We'll have to do this again, and I'll put up more time. I know you're very busy, so thanks a lot for coming on. We really appreciate it. And thanks again, Larry, for you coming on. And we'll see everybody later. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Stuart. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.